Hey y'all, new day, new verses. We continue on in Isaiah. Today we're going to be picking up with Isaiah 44, verse 25. And like I said last time, it's kind of this beautiful imagery, right? So let's dig into the middle one. Father God, thank you for this day. Thank you that I'm just to declare it in faith. Lord, if you give me tomorrow, you will give me the strength to make it through somehow. So I'm just thanking you for it in advance, and thank you for the strength to put these up and record them today. Thank you that you are in it with us, fighting for us, that you're not against us, so we need not fear. Thank you that we are more than conquerors, and that winning is the only thing we know, even when it looks like we're losing on the outside and losing by the world's definition and losing by the world's standards. We are truly winning, because in the inside where it matters, we are being refined into people who are humane, people changed where it truly counts. Winning because though the outside of the temple court may be smashed, the inside remains untouched, glistening, devoted unto you, O Holy King. We worship you, O Jesus. Amen. Verse 25. I expose the false prophets as liars and make fools of fortune tellers. I cause the wise to give bad advice, thus proving them to be fools. And I really enjoyed this version of again, breaking it down because of the three forms, right? Last time we talked about that kind of Job response of just like the awe and wonder of, wow, you're so vast and you're so intimately close. I love that. Or last post. This one, I really want to dig into the fact that right at the bottom, right? I cause the wise to give bad advice, thus proving them to be fools. Well, shoulda, coulda, and woulda, right? They represent the greatest wisdom that the world had to offer at the time and proved to be shoulda, coulda, and woulda. Not really a whole lot of woo going on there. And then you have this moment of making fools of fortune tellers. I mean, how often did Jesus point that out? It's like, yay, red sky in morning, sailors take warning, red sky at night, sailors delight. And the fact that, like, oh, you can tell the weathers and you can tell when you're supposed to sail and stuff like that, but you can't recognize the times and the things going on around you. So when a fortune teller says, oh, this is going on, or that's going on, oh, must invest in this, or oh, must invest in that, or do this, or that, like, no, just go to the word. Because fortune tellers really just kind of guessing based on trends. Admittedly, we've taken the job of fortune teller, dressed it up a little differently, and made it, projectors of what have you. Oh, I see the tech trends going out this way, and oh, I believe this will go out that way. It's fortune telling. It's a different name. It's a different spell book. It's the same witchcraft. In that it's basically going, oh, I'm going to take a wild guess and a shitload of charisma and get people to buy hook, line, and sinker whatever I'm going to sell them. Tell me that pattern hasn't been going on for ad infinitum. And that's kind of the core problem of it, with the fortune teller aspect of it. And it starts the whole thing, false prophets to be liars. And it's really interesting here that it stings right there that I expose false prophets as liars. That's what it is. I mean, Deuteronomy, you have the check about false prophets and how you measure that out, and you can easily do it, and there's a lot of places to do it. There are groups that do it, and I love that we are brothers and sisters that want to dig into that, and it's their passion, that's their calling. I love that. I also look at the fact that if you want to see what the false prophet kind of shows to be them, it's the liars. It's the ones who have no interest in actually doing what they say they're going to do, walking it out, not just walking the walk, but or not just talking the talk, but walking the walk. Actually being doers of the word, not just speakers of it. And it's interesting to me, too, because of the idea of false prophets, right? As I think about, the revelation of the Isle of Patmos, how that's a prophecy. And I think about the prophets, literally, middle section of the Torah, or Tanakh, rather. It's literally the big three in the scroll of the 12. A lot of these prophecies, yes, there are moments like we're going to keep going and have been hinting at, and are going to straight up go into hardcore when we hit, especially 53 and places like that, where it's poignant about this is Mashiach. But like there are moments of this is the future, this is what's going to happen with Cyrus, that we're going to come up to on different places. Oh, like Obadiah, this is what's going to happen to Amos, or this is what's going to happen to Edom, and Amos was what's going to happen to northern Israel, if memory serves. So there is the prophetic of this is going to look forward and say, hey, this is the future outcome. a lot of that I also see as being covenant watchdogness. Because the end result that ends up happening in the future that the prophets talk to is kind of the end result of what happened in Torah. Why does Edom get a boop on the snoot? Because instead of taking care of their estranged, alien, now wandering, homeless, orphaned brother off the streets, taking them in, protecting them, and letting them pass through their kingdom, they brought out swords, weapons, and said, "We don't like you. You're not okay being over here. We're afraid of you. Go." Doesn't matter that you're homeless. Doesn't matter that you're hurting. Doesn't matter that you're trying to get to your home. We don't want you here because you are an icky other, so you must go. That's why Edom got the boop on the snoot. And Obadiah lays that out quite clearly. And even Moses hints at the idea. It's like, okay, well, our brother just acted like a jackass, because remember, Edom and Jacob, or Esau and Jacob are brothers, and Edom and Israel are the nations who came from them. It's just one more sibling rivalry. Because the prophets all throughout the Bible continually talk to covenant faithfulness, to remembering who God is, all the way back to that Exodus 34 revelation. Yahweh, Yahweh, a God compassionate and faithful, slow to anger, rich in unfailing love and tender mercies, faithful to the tens of thousands of generations, not forgiving, or not calling the innocent guilty or the guilty innocent. Like, he doesn't let the guilty go free. And he holds it out to the threes and the fours, and that is a comparison between the thousands versus the threes and the fours, and just the bounty of generosity. Because God is a generous God. He makes it rain on the just and the unjust alike. He protects. He watches over. He does some of the most incredible things we can imagine. And it's about faithful covenant belief. Blind faith is not a thing in the Bible. Abraham didn't get to the point where he could do with Isaac what he did, because I was like, oh, okay, I'm 100+ years old now, and I'm just going to off him because, well, you told me to. What's the story up to that point? What's the 100+ years of his ass being bailed out? That man had a gift for getting himself in a sling, usually because he was a liar, or because he was more interested in selling Sarah up the river to save his own ass. I'm not trying to knock the guy either. I'm telling the story of how he could be so believing by the time he got to Isaac. Because every time he messed up, God rescued him. Every time he dropped the ball, God rescued him, bailed him out, protected him, watched over him. To say nothing of all the times when he watched over him when he wasn't being a bit of a dink in his moments and choices. Like those places of rescuing Lot, those places of watching over him and protecting him when he went to go get all of the different possessions. Because how could a single family with a couple of family friends do what 5 kings couldn't? And it's really interesting to see that it's God's hand on it. When we remember, all the way through, by the time he gets to Isaac, having the experience of Ishmael, having the experience of bailed out with so many different kings. If memory serves, Amalek and Egypt both had to deal with that. After all of it, of course he could get to Isaac and believe. Because he'd been rescued and saved time and time and time and time again. That's the faith we're called to. That's the prophets I read. So when a false prophet comes up and I read in 1 John, it's like anyone who says turning away from Mashiach, who is the rescuing king. Like, hey, I'm sorry, there's only one rescuing king. There's only one salvation route. There's only one way the ass gets out of the sling. And that's coming from somebody who tried every way possible, because I was raised on the pull yourself up by the bootstraps mentality. I was raised on the mentality of get yourself out of it, build a better mousetrap. You can do it, outthink it. Use your mind, it's a gift. Use your body, it's strength. Use all of these things, all of the resources. I've got to tell you, there's only one thing that will ever fill those empty places. There's only one thing that will ever truly fill that empty hole and rescue. And when you have intimate relationship with him, actions like with Isaac are logical, because, well, if he said, this is what I'm going to do, i.e., the nations will come from this son, and he says, okay, now give him back. Somehow, the promise fulfilled. is not negated by the request. Because the person who gives the promise is faithful to complete it. That's why liars are such a thing. Why yes means yes and no means no is so important. And why anything else is from the evil one with the Sermon on the Mount. Are you going to swear up and down and do it and end up making yourself a liar, at which point calling in everything else into question that you say? Or a simple yes and no? Yes, God met me here. Yes, he will meet me again. Yes, God said that if we continue to turn away from him, we will get the swat. And then if a people called by his name shall humble themselves and pray, and he shall see to them, look to them, heal them, restore them. As the promise keeper is faithful. Our issue so often is that we want the promise more than the promise keeper. We want the healing more than the healer. We want the miracle more than we want the one who performs the miracle. And that's where we get into the problem. Is fortune tellers will tell you how to get the miracle, but they won't tell you how to actually seek the one who can make you whole. Here's how you can get that nice chunk of money, but it's not actually going to solve the real problem in the soul. The fear of lack. The fear of missing out, FOMO, right? That fear can only really be quenched and solved by one thing. Otherwise, it's just tracing trends like a heroin addict. Tracing a dragon by another name. Retail therapy. I'm not trying to be cold or cruel or, well, blunt, most definitely trying to be. Purely because this needs to be understood. This is the kind of bluntness I'm talking about. In the first bit, the gentleness of the understanding. Oh, this is how massive and how true and how good God is. And the realization, false prophets are going to be shown as liars because it's what they are at the core. They're choosing to lie. The fortune tellers showing that it's a foolish guessing game. You would be no different off between following a Fortune 500 trend-setting CEO what-have-you person with X, Y, and Z behind their name than you would rolling a pet of dice. Unless they're committing inside trading. All most of these false prophets are doing, the fortune tellers are doing, is cold reading. That's the problem. They're investing in and profiting from the worst of the human condition. So that when wise people end up giving bad advice, it's shown to be foolish because the whole structure is foolish. If it's not wholly dependent on God, it will fall apart. I'll say that again. If it's not wholly dependent on God, it will fall apart. Because if it's not built on his foundation, the only thing left is shifting sand. You don't have to take my word for it. They're his words himself from the Sermon on the Mount. And though uploading on my phone doesn't let me put the playlist at the very end, seriously, go look up the Sermon on the Mount playlist. Better yet, go listen to the Bible Project version of it. I've been going through it this year, and it's really good. If you want to do both, have at and enjoy. I'm kind of amazed and blessed that God would let me go through it before doing it so now. Dig in and spend time with him. Because false prophets will always be exposed as liars. Fortune tellers will always be made fools. And the wise, the shoulda, coulda, and woulda mentality, the religions of this world will always be proven to give bad advice. Because it is the foolish one who built their house upon the sand. It is the wise person who builds their foundation upon the rock. And throughout this text, Daniel's dream, Isaiah, and everything in between, that rock is Jesus, and there is none other. Should that be surprising when pretty much every profound idea that we have in the West toward loving others is founded on his teaching, his preaching, his life, his death, his resurrection, and the way he lives in us. It's no longer we who live, but Christ who lives in us. So we died in those waters and came up a new creation, the work of his hand. And it is a process. So don't get down on yourself for going through it. Keep making one step, one foot in front of the other. Sometimes one step forward and two steps back, and two step forward and one step back is learning how to dance. So move at the end, fourth rhythms of grace, and let the Lord lead you. You'll make it. We'll see you then.